When you date in your masculine energy, you're going to attract project men. This is the biggest bane of the high achieving woman. She doesn't understand why she keeps attracting men who just don't make any effort. And the reason why she keeps attracting men who don't make effort is because she's showing up in her masculine energy. Now, the second issue with showing up in your masculine is that you repel men who are in their empowered masculine. Because if opposites attract, men who can actually take action, who want to spoil you, who want to plan dates, bring you presents, be in that masculine leadership role around you. Something that a lot of my clients tell they really find attractive in men, when men take the lead and when men pursue and take the initiative. These kind of men are repelled by masculine energy. So we're losing at both fronts. We're attracting that which we do not want, and we're repelling that which we want when we show up in our masculine. So some examples of what showing up in your masculine energy looks like, being the first one to say, hey, when are we meeting? Planning the date, organizing the date, showing up at the date and leading the conversation, leaning forward and saying, so what do you want to eat? Are you sure you want this? This mothering energy that I talk about, like over caring for the guy instead of, being into him and like being in this action space versus just being, which is feminine energy.
My guest, Sami Wunder, is a leading international dating and relationship coach who specializes in helping high-achieving women attract and keep romantic love. Her comprehensive approach shows her clients how to embrace strong relationship boundaries while still emanating an inviting feminine energy. Sami has enabled more than 300 single clients to get married and more than 350 partnered clients to bring their marriages back from divorce in the past 5 years. Sami founded her multi-seven-figure relationships brand after exiting a successful career as a gold medalist economist with a master's in public policy. Since then, she has improved the love lives of thousands of women, including celebrities, senior executives, and entrepreneurs in over 55 countries across the globe. So Sami Wunder, I am so happy to have you on Passion, Love, Pursuit podcast. As I was mentioning, this is such a perfect topic to have at the top of the year. And you're calling all the way from Germany, and I'm in Los Angeles. So it's so exciting to connect with you from all across the world.
Thank you for having me, Erica.
Yeah. Well, like I said, that this topic is so important. And I think my audience will definitely love this topic we're going to go into deep today. So first I must say, your expertise in love and relationships, I believe, is paramount to what you share. Anything I've ever heard. I don't even know if I'm saying that correctly. Sorry. My mind, I feel like I'm a little foggy because I have a cold, as I mentioned. So let me repeat that. What you share in love and relationships, I think, is so paramount to anything I've ever heard. And I just believe I personally relate so much to this because I feel it's the biggest struggle I've had personally is in love and relationships and all the lessons I've learned. And a lot of what you share is exactly the lessons I learned in relationships, is this polarity and being in the masculine opposed to the feminine and just being this do type of woman. And that energy is not really well received in relationships. So I'm sure a lot of women can relate to this, or at least what we're going to go into today. So I would like to know first by asking you just what has been the catalyst to lead you into becoming the expert in love and relationships?
I think for me, my own personal transformation when it came to men, love, and relationships was extremely instrumental in sort of just throwing me into this path of wanting to study about romantic relationships and what makes them work and what makes them tick. So for the large part, I would say I'm self-taught, like extremely self-taught, because when I came to Germany for my master's on a full scholarship, I recognized that it was important for me not just to have an amazing career, but it was also really important for me to have a family, to be married. You know, in our society, women are sometimes ashamed of just saying, you know what, I'm an old school girl. I want to get married, right? So I realized that, you know, love was really important for me, and I actively started to date. And that's when I failed miserably. I mean, man after man, anyone with even remote potential would come in strong. There would be attraction, there would be chemistry, there would be a mental connection where, both people are well educated, both people are ambitious, both people are reasonably good looking. And then it would fizzle out for one reason or another. Um, Sometimes they would tell me that I was a really lovely girl, but they couldn't give me what I wanted. Sometimes they would just ghost on me without a word. Sometimes they would come back with, I've met someone else and I wish you all the best. And this pattern kept repeating itself in different ways, shapes, and forms till I felt like I had met that one person that I thought was the one for me. And we were dating, everything was perfect. 2 months in, I stopped hearing from him. And I just remember that bit in my stomach where I went, oh my God, is this happening again? This can't be happening to me again. And it happened to me again. And somehow the pain of that transfer, like that pain was big enough to transform me. Because that day, when I didn't hear back from him, I remember writing to him against my own better judgment. Because if a man is not writing to you for 10 days suddenly, he's either dead, which is very unlikely,
Yeah.
which is very unlikely, or he's not interested anymore.
Simple.
Right.
It's one
And
or
it
the
was,
other.
it's so interesting that like our ego, because we're successful, smart women, I think our ego finds it hard to accept that somebody's not interested in us or somebody has lost interest. And I reached out. I said, hey, what's going on? Haven't heard from you in 10 days. And he just said the same old, hey, you're wonderful, but I'm not sure I can give you what you want. And I wish you all the best. And I remember that pit in my stomach, sitting in Berlin, 2 a.m. at night with my tissue box and just going, okay, I need to do something about this because this is not a one off anymore. This is a pattern. And there is me in this. And so while I definitely met some men who were douchebags, I think this experience made me understand that it was important that I took ownership for my part in how things were playing out for me. And so I did the inner work. I read all the books that, go deep into self-esteem, masculine, feminine, polarity. And after that, I think my inner transformation was so fast that within months I was dating, meeting some really attractive, high quality men who were this time pursuing me, not the other way around, which I was used to. When a guy would catch my attention, usually I would just sort of laser focus and try to make it work. But this time it was the other way around, which was I was the free bird and they were trying to catch me, which was a great feeling to have, to feel like the prize in love. And I got engaged to my husband within 9 months of seeing him. I was rotational dating. Not every woman has to rotational date, but I do believe it's a really smart strategy for single women that I also teach today as part of my programs. And then what happened was that my love and my desire to not do a long distance marriage took me to Paris with Chris, my husband. He got a great job there. And I decided that I'm going to find something in Paris because I don't want to do something long distance. And back then he was, making the big money. And so we both moved to Paris and I couldn't speak French. And I spent 2 months having a good time shopping and cruising in Paris. But then I realized, that there was something more that I wanted to do. And this wasn't it. Like I was a smart woman, I had a master's degree. And then I started to get into these really sad phases where I was like, honey, there has to be more to my life. I want to do something more. And I had all these consultancy jobs with the international development organizations. I worked for the ILO in Geneva. I worked for the GIZ, which is the German Development Organization. And somehow I felt like there's got to be more to life than this. I don't want to write these long reports. I'm an economist by training, and I don't want to write these long reports and wonder whose life I am changing and where am I making an impact. And there's got to be more than this. And I think all of this came together because just destiny, universe, providence. I was scrolling on Facebook and I saw this ad which said, do you have a desire to help people? Do you have a gift that you would like to share? Become a life coach with training. And the rest is history. I signed up for that course, and they make you ask yourself, so what is your gift? What is the niche that you want to go in? And I said, this is the biggest personal transformation I've had in my love life. I know I am not the only smart, successful woman struggling. And I know that I've hit upon messages that changed my life in such a fundamental way. Like, it brought me my beautiful marriage, my two beautiful children. I have a multi-7-figure business that I run today that impacts the lives of over 60,000 women across the globe, high achieving, successful women. So I knew I had hit upon messages that other women needed to hear. And that's how I decided to become a love coach who specializes in working with high achieving, successful, smart women. And there's been no looking back ever since.
Amazing. So I'm sure many women listening to this right now can relate to your story. I know I can. I remember getting to that. The one thing you mentioned is that you are a part in this situation, that the same thing that keeps happening. So I remember I came to that realization. Of course, I'm the common denominator between all these situations. So I have to take responsibility for my part. And that's when the inner work, as you mentioned, we need to do is look at what is my part in this? What is the common thing that keeps happening, the same pattern? And so I remember I got to that breaking point as well. And this was several years ago. I think it was, let's say 3.5, 4 years ago, that I had that kind of breaking moment where a guy I was dating that I was like, oh, maybe this is the one. I was super excited. It was really hot and everything. But then it died out because of multiple situations. But I got to that breaking moment where I'm like, not again. Like, I really want to find the one, and why does this keep happening? And that's when I did the work of myself. I did hire a life coach personally, then somebody that I worked with before that knew my history. She knew my patterns. And that's when she really got me to realize, number one, I was seeking love externally instead of truly valuing and loving who I was. And so in a way, it's like I seek that love so much that I was chasing it. And I did the same thing. I was pursuing. When I was really into a guy, I would do the things, reach out, take the initiative and all these things. So I really relate to your story, and I think a lot of women can. So that's first thing to say. But the thing that I want to touch on is, you mentioned you work with high achieving, ambitious women. So I think that anybody that is in that category could relate to this, because they attract a man and then they are really interested and they want to build this long lasting relationship. But for some reason, there's something getting in the way. And I would like to hear from you. What do you feel is the biggest blocks or the dynamics that keep this from happening?
Sure. So, I have to say, my core clientele is high achieving, successful women, but I also work with, just everyday amazing women who are professional women, because I think all women have the challenges that I'm going to talk to you about. But I think for the high achieving women, the challenges are really drawn out. Like, they are really standing out as big blocks in the way she might be pursuing her love life. So I think the first thing I've experienced with a lot of my clients is that, just very similar to me, they tend to be operating a lot in their masculine energy in their love lives. Now, masculine energy, I'm all for masculine energy. I love it. It's freaking amazing what women are doing and achieving today, what I am doing and achieving today. And I couldn't do it with just leaning back relaxing in my armchair, right? And I couldn't bring up my kids if I was just leaning back and relaxing in my armchair in my feminine energy. I think we've got to embrace our trained masculine sides as high achievers. We can organize, lead, plan, do, take a lot of action in the direction of that which we want. Now, the problem arises when we channel the same energy in our love lives. Because when you take this doing, action oriented, goal oriented, conversion oriented, how do I convert this like guy I like to be my guy and to love me? What are we going to attract? Because when you go into your dates with this masculine doing, pleasing, action oriented energy, you end up attracting by the law of polarity, which is what attraction and sexual tension in relationships is based on, which is basically polar opposite energies attract. So in romance, it's about polarity. It's about the presence of polar opposite energies. So if you're going out there in your masculine, you're going to attract men who are in their feminine. Now, this is not a judgment against men who have dominant feminine energies, but then what happens is these men, after the initial high is over, after the initial honeymoon phase is over, these men start to feel like work. These men are laid back. They don't have so much ambition. They would rather chill on the couch than plan a magical date outside. And then sometimes in the more extreme cases, these men could be dependent on the woman for money, financially. They could be, they could be another baby that the woman has to manage in the household. So I call these project men. So when you date in your masculine energy, you're going to attract project men. This is the biggest bane of the high achieving woman. She doesn't understand why she keeps attracting men who just don't make any effort. And the reason why she keeps attracting men who don't make effort is because she's showing up in her masculine energy. Now, the second issue with showing up in your masculine is that you repel men who are in their empowered masculine. Because if opposites attract, men who can actually take action, who want to spoil you, who want to plan dates, bring you presents, be in that masculine leadership role around you, something that a lot of my clients tell they really find attractive in men, when men take the lead and when men pursue and take the initiative. These kind of men are repelled by masculine energy. So we're losing at both fronts. We're attracting that which we do not want, and we're repelling that which we want when we show up in our masculine. So some examples of what showing up in your masculine energy looks like, being the first one to say, hey, when are we meeting? Planning the date, organizing the date, showing up at the date and leading the conversation, leaning forward and saying, so what do you want to eat? Are you sure you want this? This mothering energy that I talk about, like over caring for the guy instead of, being into him and like being in this action space versus just being, which is feminine energy. It can also look like, being a lot in your head on the date. So talking a lot about work, talking a lot about, coming from this place of performance energy, as I like to call it, like, pick me, look at me, I'm such a great catch, I'm sitting right in front of you, I'm going to narrate to you all my achievements, I'm going to tell you how great I am, I'm going to tell you how many people I lead in my team, I'm going to tell you how much money I make. And all of this performance energy is actually just masculine energy, which pushes the empowered masculine men away, and it pulls in the people, the men who are laid back, relaxed, who are happy with you rowing the boat and doing the work. And a lot of women fall for this in the start, like they may even fall for the feminine men at the start, but then later on they get resentful. Why doesn't he do the work? Why do I have to always call? Why do I always have to set up the date, right? So once you understand polarity, your whole world changes, because you start to see, what am I attracting and why am I attracting it? And if I want to change it, if I want to shift what I'm attracting, I want to shift how I'm showing up, because when I shift how I show up, what I attract responds to that. right? Responds differently. So that's the big one thing, which is showing up in your masculine energy. I think the second big block is believing, or the limiting belief, that men are intimidated by my success and my looks. I've actually worked with a few, supermodels, models, um, and they've come and they've told me that, Sami, I don't think I can have a relationship because men are really intimidated by how amazing I look, right? Now, for some others, it is, I've worked with 7-figure, multi-6-figure CEOs, and they come and tell me men are intimidated by my brains and by the money I make, basically by my success. Now, these are really BS beliefs, okay? And these are so toxic because there was a time when I was too believing, especially at my master's level, that, oh, like if he's not into me, oh, it's just because I have brains, and men like bimbets, and men like these stupid, dumb women, and I'm never going to be dumb for a man. And that's why it's not working out, because I expressed an opinion and he doesn't like a woman with an opinion. Now, there is nothing further away from the truth. Firstly, empowered men love a woman with an opinion. Like, nobody loves a dumb cow. Nobody is looking for somebody who's like moo on a date. You want to be with somebody who's interesting, who has something to say about the world, about what's going on in their life, right? The problem is when we have this limiting belief that men are intimidated by my looks and my success. Firstly, it blocks us from addressing the deeper issues. So if you assume that men are intimidated by your success and your looks, you'll never look deeper to see and understand what is really going on here that is blocking my connection with men. What is really going on here that I'm not able to attract a great guy in my life, even though I'm such a catch, even though I know I'm such a catch, right? So this belief is so toxic because it prevents very, very smart women from actually looking deep underneath the rug and finding out what the real problem is, not what they think that it is, which is, my looks and my successes are intimidating to men, but it prevents you from looking at what is really causing the block or the disconnection. And the second reason why this belief is so toxic is because where does this leave us women? Like, if like, to have love, am I not supposed to have success? Or to have love, am I not supposed to be good looking? Like, where does this leave us women if we believe that men are intimidated by our love and success, our looks and success, right? So it literally leaves us in the 1930s, where you either get to have one or the other. You can either be successful or you can have a man. But in today's world, you get to have both, girl. Like, you get to, like, look at Beyonce, right? Like, we have so many amazing examples today of women who are so successful and who have amazing men by their side, loving, adoring marriages, right? So I think this belief is so toxic because it makes us women dim our light. We think we have to become smaller to have love. And the truth is that if you have a secure, healthy man around you, he's going to be proud of your success. He's not going to love you for it. Like, my husband doesn't love me because I have a multi-7-figure company. He loved me when I had nothing, right? That's what love is. It's about you. It's about your personality. It's about your heart. It's about your vulnerability. It's not about your success. So I think these would be the two big, broad sort of blocks I would say a lot of high achieving women have. And they really have to look past this in order to get to the real issues of why they're not able to attract a healthy man into their lives.
And the second one you said, when somebody would say, oh, they're just intimidated by me, I'm too successful, I'm too pretty, or whatever. When you say look deeper, what is the common thing that will show up? Is it the first one?
I mean, it could be the first one. It could also be that, women, a lot of high achieving women tend to be guarded. We have a really hard time being vulnerable around men. Like, we are so trained to keep it together, to never look tired, to never tell anyone we're overwhelmed or we need help, that can come across as being guarded. So if you look deeper, you could see that the woman is going on dates but they're very robotic. She's not really letting anybody enter and see her. And if she lets somebody see her, then she gets attached so fast that she loses her sense of balance in that connection. And then she sort of fantasizes and projects about who this man is and what their potential is going to be in the future, and sort of falls in love really fast, which also leaves her feeling, walking on eggshells. So there are so many things that could happen when you look underneath. But I think the broad message here would be, are you willing to look underneath? Or is it just men who are the problem and they're just intimidated by your success? Because that is so toxic, and it never lets you like lean into growth and lean into ownership, which is so important if you're really looking to change something. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I relate to both of those. When I had that like breaking moment, when I really had to step back and look at the full picture of everything, those were two things that really stood out. Exactly the two things you mentioned. And it's really crazy. That's why I'm like, when I've listened to your conversations on other podcasts, I'm like, oh, I so relate to this. These are all my lessons that I've learned. Thank God for them. But I know I would have hired you if I was back in 4 years ago, realizing all these things. I would have hired you in a second, because I'm like, I completely relate to all these things. And luckily things have changed because I learned those lessons and implemented a lot in my life. And so you speak about, so I know you talked about how somebody would be operating in their masculine, but how could someone then operate more in their feminine, the woman that might be, doing all the things for her business per se, but now bringing this into a new date, new relationship? What would a feminine energy look like?
Okay, so I could talk about this for hours because it's my expertise. So what I'm going to do is perhaps give you 2-3 tips on how women who are watching this, listening to this, can lean into their feminine energy more. I think the first thing I want to say is ask the question, where are you judging feminine energy? Because whatever we judge, we tend to push it away. So I remember in my single days when I was very much in my masculine, and I would look at these pretty women, they were dressing up in like skirts and dresses. I would judge them. I would say, oh my God, she's just interested in like looking good. What about brains? Like, I'm proud of my brains. So it doesn't matter that I'm going to my university in a t-shirt and pajamas because I've got brains. So there's nothing wrong with, being proud of your brains. But I think what I'm trying to say here is that just look at yourself and ask yourself, where do I judge feminine energy qualities in other women, right? Maybe sometimes you judge feminine other qualities in other women when you notice that they're really leaned back around their men. I used to call it being uninteresting, but these women who I called uninteresting from my masculine energy were actually really relaxed in their feminine energy, and they were not doing all this performance around men and trying to be a good host and trying to like, what do you need and what do you want, and like constant doing. They were just being, and I labeled that as boring. So I judged all these feminine energy qualities, right? Like being a good listener, I was like, oh, she's boring, she has nothing to say. She was just being a good listener.
Wow.
Yeah. So look at where you are judging other women or women who represent feminine energy qualities, because whatever we're judging, we're pushing it away. And you want to embrace being a woman, you want to embrace those feminine energy qualities. And the good news is that we already have these feminine energy qualities. It's not like you have to climb the Mount Everest to achieve something. You just have to go back inside you, because Mother Nature already gave this to you. Mother Nature made you woman, which means that Mother Nature gifted you with access to your feminine energy. And you just have to activate that access to that part within yourself. So that's the first thing. Now, the second thing is, how can we be more in our feminine, more practically on dates, etc., when we're around men? So what I always like to say, at least to my single clients, and I also work with women in relationships and married ladies, but at least for the single clients, the way I like to describe it is, be the lighthouse, not the laser beam. Okay, so what does this mean? This means that Most high achieving women, when they like a guy, they become a laser beam, which is they laser focus on the guy. And they think that by laser focusing and giving the man all their energy, it's going to work in their favor. But there's nothing further away from the truth. That laser focus on the man is actually a very masculine quality. It's very goal oriented. It's like, now I like you, now we'll make this work. And if we keep working well enough, we're going to get to the relationship. Now, this laser focus actually turns men off. And what they want to experience around you is you being the lighthouse, which means that your light is spreading in all directions. You love yourself, you nourish yourself, your focus is on you, not him. And he's attracted by your light, but so are other sailors as well, right? Like he's not the only sailor, and his boat is not the only boat. So the laser focused woman who is operating and dating in her masculine energy will laser beam on this one man in one boat. And when he doesn't give her attention, she'll feel empty and she'll feel devastated. Whereas the lighthouse, or the woman who's dating in her feminine energy, knows that the sea is full of amazing sailors. So she has an abundant attitude towards suitors and men. And she likes to enjoy attention and attract men, sailors from different boats, right? So I call this rotational dating, but we don't have to get into it right now. We can stick with feminine energy, but that's the way to date in your feminine, which is not to get laser focused on one man, to actually stay in your rootedness, in your roots as a lighthouse, spread your light, right? And let them come to you, let them be attracted by your light versus, pursuing them. So imagine like the laser beam just follows around, right? Like if she likes somebody,
Yeah.
she follow around. Whereas the lighthouse, it stands rooted and it shines its light and it attracts by being the lighthouse, right? So that's tip number 2, which is don't be a laser beam, be a lighthouse when dating. Now, tip number 3, this can also be useful for all our women in relationships and married ladies, which is to really up your capacity to receive. So I think as a hardworking, ambitious woman, I grew up with the belief system there was a good thing to help others. And I still believe it's a good thing to help others. But I have also learned the joy and the beautiful, magical quality of being able to receive. You see, like we live in a world which comes into balance based on the presence of opposites. If there were only givers and there were no receivers, the givers would have no joy. And if there were only receivers, there would be no giving, right? So receiving is a beautiful feminine quality. And I see a lot of my high achieving clients, they instinctively reject receiving. If a man is making effort to see them, they immediately feel like, oh my God, how can I return this? Or what can I do to match his energy? Or he got me a present, now I have to get something to match that, right? Because we're not used to just receiving. We're used to give and take, give and take. That's how we do social relationships, right? Like my friend bought me shoes worth $100, so I'm going to buy her a gift worth $110, and that's how we calculate things. But for polarity to develop, for one person to be in their masculine and for one person to be in their feminine, you've got to be able to receive more than you are giving to him. In other words, he has to be giving more. And for him to be the leading partner, the masculine man in the relationship, he has to be able to give to you more than you are giving to him. Because if you equalize it, there's no tension anymore. There's no sexual tension. There's no masculine and feminine. There's roommates. Right? So you cancel out the tension. And a lot of my clients have a hard time receiving. Like they always feel like they have to give something back, or they even ask the question, what did I do to deserve this? Like why? I have a client whose guy, flew her first class to Italy and, showed her around Lake Como and, everywhere. And she was like, oh my God, it's the first time in my life I'm flying first class. I've flown business class before, but I've never flown first class. And then she posted in our group program, in the Facebook group, she's like, Sami, what can I do? Like, what would be a nice thank you present, you know? And we just told her, you know, your thank you present is your smiles, your thank you present. His thank you present is your happiness. His thank you present is your appreciation. The masculine fuel is appreciation. Like the masculine
True.
lights up when you light up, right? So receiving and cultivating the capacity to receive from our men without feeling this constant urge to equalize a man's effort, and to just be able to say, okay, I deserve this. I'm a goddess. I'm a diva. These are my offerings. I receive them with joy from a man, is really going to help you, you know, maintain intentional polarity inside your relationships. And that's going to keep the sexual tension and fire alive and help you not become roommates.
I think that is so important for women to hear, because I think that's one of the hardest things that women do fall into, is not being able to receive. And I don't know where that generally has stemmed from, but I think that's a common thing that women experience, that they just feel like, as you mentioned, they have to give something if they receive something. And so let's talk about, actually, one of the important things I want to talk about is, you speak about in the feminine energy, is leaning back. So can you explain what that means? Because I think that's an important thing to integrate as well for the feminine energy.
Yes, absolutely. So I explain leaning back in through several ways. So I think at the first level, leaning back is letting men come to you versus going to men. So leaning back is just creating that space for the masculine, for it to be able to move towards you and step up for you. Leaning back is just being, it's non-action. So when there is non-action, there is space that is naturally created for the masculine to step up for you, right? So let me give you an example. I show up at a party, I look at this man that I think is attractive, and I make eye contact and I smile. So he knows it's safe to approach me, but I don't approach him. So I'm leaning back, I'm soft, I'm warm, I'm inviting. That is feminine energy. But he has to do the work, he has to take the action. And that would put him in masculine. And if he doesn't do that, I'm not going to go home and beat myself up. I'm not going to say, oh, I wish I had done something, because then I would destroy polarity. And I want to attract a man who has the courage to walk up to me and say hi. Right? So that's what leaning back in real life or practical terms looks like. Now, leaning back could also just be emotional maturity. It could be knowing and understanding that as a woman, I'm not going to work for a man. I am proud. I don't work for men. So it could just be emotional maturity. It could just be knowing your worth and knowing that you are worthy of the pursuit.
Absolutely.
At a spiritual level, leaning back could be, I trust that with the right man, I don't have to make things happen. I trust that the right man for me is going to have the courage to be able to pursue me. Is going to have the courage to be able to come to me. So I'm not going to go out there, get urgent and desperate and make things happen with a man, feeling like he's the last surviving Homo sapien on the planet. I'm not going to act this way, right? So it can also be a spiritual stance where you are surrendered to what is best for you to show up by itself in your life versus trying really hard to make it happen.
I love that. I think it's so important. And you speaking about the sexual tension, part of that was the receiving aspect. But what else can you say to creating that sexual tension, that polarity, that dynamic, let's say in an existing relationship, too, so it doesn't get into that, if you're living with your partner, in that roommate type of situation, if you want to say?
Oh my God, I have so much to talk about this. So
I know
there's this.
you have a wealth of information. Let's see what we could get in an hour.
Now, there's a particular skill I teach my clients in my group coaching programs, and it's called positive tension. So positive because it's good for you, it's good for your relationship, it's good for your guy, It's good for sexual desire to stay in the relationship. And tension, because it is unpredictable. It is can cause anxiety within you when you practice it, and yet it's good for you, right? So it's called positive tension, and it's a skill I teach my clients, where I say introducing a little bit of unpredictability in your relationship through your actions, through your words, is going to keep the charge and the tension alive with your man. Now, it's not the same as game playing. You're not like sitting there trying to manipulate your man, by going silent on him or ignoring him. That's not what we're talking about. But we are talking about, keeping the fun alive by, sometimes, giving unpredictable answers, not always doing the same thing every day, single day. So he's like, I know my girl. Here's what she does. She brushes her teeth at 7, comes to bed at 9. I know everybody she's talking to. So like for single clients, we say, keeping a sense of mystery is extremely important in the early phases of dating. Like that's what creates positive tension. Women think that if they just go on a date and they connect and then they, disclose all their details, that's what connection feels like. But that's how women connect with women. That's not how men connect with women. And for men to connect with women in the early stages of dating, you need positive tension, which is sexual desire, has to be kept alive. And that happens when you are able to hold on to some mystery and intrigue in the early phases of dating. So for us, it's like I forbid my clients from chatting with men day and night, 24/7. I'm like, don't be so available. Don't be so present all the time. And again, some people, can come up with, oh, this is game playing. I just want to be myself. But I'm sorry, like, this is not how it works. Like, think of yourself as a busy, ambitious person with an interesting life. Would you be stuck on your phone answering every text you get, every nanosecond you get it? No. Like, you are a busy person with a busy, interesting life. And so what happens is we become the laser beam, which I mentioned at the start. And then, even though we have so many unanswered texts from other people, that one man, when he messages, the minute he messages, we drop everything and we get back, because that's what we've been waiting for, right? And that repeated behavior of like complete availability, if he's coming late, it's not a problem. Chatting with him, good morning, good night, wake up again, good morning, good night, good morning, good night. That is just so available. It's boring. And I think for a lot of women, it feels like we're connecting and this hot guy is messaging me, but it's actually completely killing his desire to ask you out. So positive tension is, a great skill we teach our clients. In relationships, for me, I'm a married woman of almost 9 years now. I'm a mother. Oh my God, ask me about it. Like, it's a whole other topic.
Right.
To be, in a relationship and to be parenting and being an entrepreneur. But I think positive tension, in my case, for example, just looks like me taking a trip for like 2 weeks by myself, and my husband, he was like, oh my God, I miss you so much. Of course, we have support, etc., with the kids, but like having the sense of independence and having this sense of, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, but I'm still a woman and I still get to enjoy my life. And, I get to claim that without feeling guilty or without feeling bad that I'm leaving my kids and my husband behind, So that created a lot of tension. And when I got back, I was recently in Florida for a trip visiting my family, and it was a wonderful summer sun in December, which was amazing. And I could just feel like the tension, like Chris was calling every morning and, he was really watching all my stories on Instagram. And then he would tell me like, most beautiful woman, I miss you. When are you coming back? And, ever since I've come back, I can really feel like that space and that distance really cemented our relationship. Like it always makes your partner value you more when you're able to take that space for yourself and, have this life of your own that has nothing to do with your partner, so to speak. But positive tension is an amazing skill to possess. And we actually teach this in a lot of detail in our programs, because I think so many of us can get stuck in the rut of everyday life and routine and work and stress. And then that can make the sex fly right out of the window. And if you are not, physically intimate and close as often as you should be, that's a warning sign. That's a warning sign that I don't want any woman to take lightly, because that's how the decay starts, right? That's how the decay starts. That's how sex in a committed relationship, sex is how men really connect, and they express their connection through sex. And so many times my high achieving clients are so busy, they can get up in their heads, and like they're not feeling turned on, and so they don't bring that to their relationship. And so I think this is really important. Like, positive tension is a skill that helps you keep that sex and that spark and that fun, alive, even on days when everything else around you is screaming and crying like our children.
Yes. That's so valuable. And like you said, it goes from the early stage of dating into marriage. Like, it applies in all levels of that.
Absolutely.
So yeah. And I think you mentioned this earlier, the idea of pacing, when a woman doesn't rush the speed and the intensity. I don't know if you mentioned that yet, but I know you talk about this. So what would you recommend? So for somebody that is, let's say, just meeting somebody, first dating, what is this idea of pacing?
Okay, so pacing is about understanding that men fall in love over time. So any man who's telling you, I love you on date 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, he's probably feeling the butterflies for you, but he's not in love with you. And if you take those words too seriously and you fall fast for him, and you go in all intensely and you match his intensity that he's offering you, you're going to fall flat on your face 95% of the times, because men fall in love over time. So this should make us smarter as women and pace men, because most men will come on strong, go strong, and then suddenly fizzle out. It's the crash. They crash emotionally. Okay. And so, as women, we want to be the ones holding the emotional reins to how we date and to how we feel inside a relationship. And so, in the first few weeks of dating, when a man is coming on strong, it is your job to pace him. It is your job to slow him down, because it's not possible to be in love. Even if he says that through his words, men fall in love over time, not through intensity, date 1, date 2, date 3, but over time, over a period of consistent action, time, effort, money, investment over months. That's how they fall in love. So for the first few weeks, I tell my clients, 1 date a week. Even if he wants to see you more, say, oh, I'm not sure, or oh, I have plans, right? My clients like, Sami, even if I don't have plans, I'm like, yeah, even if you don't have plans, go book yourself with a yoga class or go meet your girlfriends. Don't see him 5 times in the first week or 3 times in the first week, because most women do this. And then, of course, it's like after the first few intense weeks, there's ghosting and there's fizzling out, and his calls are reducing and his texts are reducing. So you've got to be tactful and smart about this. You've got to not fall for the words, which are going to be intense at the start. And you've got to pace the relationship and the speed at which it is moving forward. So the first 2-3 weeks, I recommend 1 date a week. After that, it can turn to 2 dates a week. And I generally also tell women to avoid the texting trap, which is, you don't want to text with him like a pen pal. Like, he's not your texting buddy. He's got to court you. He's got to ask you out on dates. And
let's go back to the old times.
I know, right? Like, good morning, good night, sunshine, moonshine, and there's no date. Where's the offer of the date? So I tell women to ignore texts that are time wasting. And sometimes women are scared. They're scared of ignoring those texts. But in my experience, when my clients do that, they ignore those, time wasting texts. this men who are serious, they actually get back with an offer. They're like, okay, when are we meeting? They
Yeah.
know, men know that in order to court a woman and win a woman, you've got to see her face to face and you've got to ask her out.
Yeah.
And if you like a man, just like when you like a man, don't you want to see him? So when a man likes you, he should want to see you, right? So I also warn my single clients to not get into the texting trap.
It's so important. And I think one thing that really is important to know is like this comes from self-worth, like knowing our worth, knowing what we deserve, and knowing we deserve more than just a texting buddy and somebody taking action to want to see us. That's important, is knowing that worth and that self-love. So that's really important to touch on. That's a whole nother subject. So how does a woman, and I know this is focusing a lot on women, but this is really for the men listening, this is to understand the dynamic that goes on in a relationship as well, to keep it healthy. Because there's always, even if you're in same sex relationship, it's still that polarity that keeps it alive and moving. So how should a woman communicate what she desires? Should she, like, is there not like things she shouldn't talk about in the beginning, things she should? Like, let's say a woman that's older that is looking for the one, looking to get married, all those things. And I know you kind of had this story of your situation. What should they communicate early on? Like, let's say the first stage of dating, and what they should avoid talking about.
Okay, great questions. So I think some don'ts for first date are, don't talk about your exes, don't talk about your past relationships. I think a lot of people mistake that for connection and intimacy, but it's not. It's oversharing. You don't know this person enough to trust them with, such details about your past. So don't talk about your childhood. Don't go there. Don't, keep it light. Like, dating is supposed to be enjoyable. Dating, especially at the start, is not about, discussing our deepest struggles and discussing our, biggest traumas. That stuff should only be shared with the person who has earned our trust. So don't give that away so quickly and so fast. In terms of what should we talk about, I think you do want to assess what they're looking for. Of course, people can always lie. People can always say, I'm looking for a serious relationship and have no intention. But let's just say, for the most part, what comes out of people's mouth is the truth, right? So if somebody says, I'm just looking for a casual connection and see where that goes, some others can say, like, I remember sitting with Chris and saying, I'm looking to date and to eventually get married with the right person and have a family. And he smiled. He said, me too. And I remember how I blushed when he said me too. That was so cute. I was like, yay. So, but only in my mind. Yeah. So I think that's an important question to ask. What are you looking for? I think it's also an important question to ask in terms of, how do you feel about where you are in your life right now? For a lot of people, maybe they are looking for marriage, maybe they are looking for something serious, but they're not in that space yet. It is their ultimate intention in 5 years, but right now they're not in that space. So, like, I've had clients where they've come back from date number 3 and said, oh my God, this guy is still living with his parents, and I'm 40 years old, I'm a banker, like, I cannot be with a man who doesn't have a place of his own. So I think those things are important to suss out, not necessarily on a first date, but I think in the first couple of dates you need to be able to see, like, there is a basic level of match and compatibility at intention level, at financial level, lifestyle level. You love traveling, he hates traveling, he's always been a small town boy. Nothing wrong with what his preferences are, just that perhaps somebody else is going to be better suited to that kind of person than to you. So I think in a broad way, we can have many practical ways to look at it, but in a broad way, women want to be showing up in evaluation energy on their first 2 to 3 dates versus this falling in love, chemistry, attachment energy, right? Like, you want the men You want the men to audition for you, and you want to lean back and you want to evaluate if they're right for you or not.
Yeah, because I think it's certain questions, as you mentioned, like what are they looking for in the future, especially if you're older, let's say in your 40s or upper 30s, and you're looking for marriage somewhat soon and possibly to have a child. If that is something that you talk to that person about that they don't see in the forefront anytime soon, then maybe that's not worth your time to continue dating further. It's really, you if you desire something out of life, or if you value something and they don't have the same value, then maybe it's not a match. And it's just something to
Absolutely.
consider. Again, it's taking, understanding that you matter, your worth, you deserve what you desire. So I think it's better than going down the road for a long time and then discovering, oh, this is not a match, like
I mean,
wasting your time.
I've had clients where they've been in relationships. The men told them on date number one, I'm not looking for to have kids. And then they've gone into relationships and they are miserable. They really love the guy and they really want to have kids. And he's like, are we
I told
using
you.
protection?
Yeah.
Are we have you taken your pill? Like, he's really regimented. He doesn't want children. And now my client has finally been able to leave this man, her boyfriend, her ex-boyfriend now. But it was devastating because
Right.
at 41, she found herself single again. But if she had paid attention to him not wanting kids when they first met, she wouldn't have come this far and sort of wasted this time. That's how she feels about it. I mean, I think it was still a journey well worth
Yeah.
having lived. To love someone is still a beautiful thing. But she says, like, my entire time got wasted because I'm not gonna not have children. Like, having children is so important to me.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important. In my work, the way I address this, Erica, is I make my single clients define their non-negotiables and their minimum standards and their deal breakers. And when women have the clarity around what their minimum standards are, what their deal breakers are, and what they really, really want in a man, and I don't let the list get too long. So as a coach, my job is to help you really get results, not to make you live in a fantasy world where, you have this long list that no man is ever going to be able to fulfill. But I do help you nail down what is most important to you so that we put in the non-negotiables. Then what is a deal breaker? What just doesn't work for you? And then we give some minimum standards. If you're a doctor, a PhD, an MBA, we don't want somebody who's not even done a graduate, who doesn't even
Mhm.
have a graduate degree. It's not a match. It's not going to work, right? So this way, when you have this kind of clarity, you don't just throw things, you don't just hope, that the spaghetti will stick on the wall. You actually date with a lot of clarity, and it saves your
And
time and saves
intention
you
too.
heartache. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so important. So anybody listening to this, if you have not answered these questions before, I think it's time you should journal about it. Is really getting clear on some of the things that Sammy just mentioned. I think that's super important. And let's talk about if somebody, just to wrap this up, let's say somebody's in a relationship and they're listening to all this and they're like, oh my gosh, I've done all these things, like all these wrong things. And again, I could relate to this because this is kind of my story. Uh, can we change that bad dynamic that we have been so accustomed to? Like, we're that ambitious woman, we're a go getter, hardworking. We've had this kind of like, chasing men, being in our masculine and all that. Can we change that dynamic when we're already in a relationship that
Yes,
possibly?
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I would say for 85, rough estimate, but 85% of our clients, we're able to turn this around. And it takes intention, it takes work, it takes self awareness, but you definitely can shift. You have to think of your relationship like a dance. You've been making the wrong moves. So he's been responding to that. But now, when you start to make the right moves, if he has it in him, he's going to respond to it, because a relationship is a dance. You cannot dance alone. He cannot dance alone. If the two of you want to dance together and he has the willingness to do this with you, then when you change your moves, he has to respond differently to you in order for the relationship to work.
That's so
Make
great. I
sense?
love, yes, absolutely. And that's a great way to look at it, is just changing your moves and being, you could be the leader in that because again, like he will reciprocate by seeing that there's a difference. something going on?
So just like very quickly, I've had clients in my Elevate group coaching program, and the relationship married group. They've come to me and they've said, my man is so lazy. He never plans any dates. He doesn't come ask me how my day was. And I just get an energetic imprint of my clients when they tell me these things. I'm like, okay, ding, 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 this is happening, you know? And we just told her some really simple, practical things. We're like, okay, girl, today when he comes back from work, you're not going to run after him, open the door, and ask him if he needs water and how his day was. You're going to sit on your couch and you're going to keep reading your magazine. How's that? She's like, oh my God, that's so rude. And he would expect me to do it. We're like, no, that's just your good girl talking. He doesn't expect this from you. This is the pressure you are putting on yourself. And we're going to stop you from doing all this over performance. And we're just going to make you chill and lean back and relax. And just doing that much that day, her husband, he has his own key. He rang the bell. She didn't open. He just, used his key, got inside. He actually went looking for her. He went to the kitchen. He said, Sam, where are you? Samantha. And then he found her on the couch and he came to her. He sat down next to her and he said, darling, how are you? How was your day? And this is so interesting because this woman, she keeps running behind her husband and she keeps trying to get him to open up and trying to get him to connect and trying to get him to ask her, how is she doing? And he doesn't do that with all the effort. And then she stops making the effort in one small incident. And there he comes, bam, the polarity, the feminine attracting, pulling the masculine in. So sometimes it's those simple tweaks, small tweaks. We think, oh my God, I have to become feminine to change my marriage. And this is so much work. It can be so simple and it can be so fun to get into your feminine. And then actually you can just chuckle and, send us a message and tell us like, oh my God, this really works,
So great.
Yeah, so this can be really light. Leaning into your feminine energy doesn't have to be heavy. It doesn't have to be, oh my God, and I have to do all this work on myself. It can be really light and really fun because you see the results so fast, especially for women in relationships where the man is in the house, because then the dance changes so quickly and the men respond so fast to the different moves of the woman.
And another thing I think women do unconsciously is emasculating men. What could you touch just like to wrap up this? What could you touch on about that of how women could emasculate men without even realizing it?
I think by fixing men is the number one thing we do that emasculates men. So I think in a man's world, in the bro code, it is understood that unless someone actively asks for your help, you don't help, right? You don't treat another person as a victim. You don't treat another person as a helpless person. You treat other people as empowered people who are capable of finding the solutions to their own problems. Now, in the girl code, if there was ever one written, this is completely the opposite. We thrive as women on supporting each other and being there for each other. And before I have finished telling you that, I need a haircut, you're like, oh my God, you've got to try this salon, Sammy, like you've got to go there. Like it's the best thing ever, right? And that's how we connect, right? But that's not how men connect with women. And so one of the biggest ways I see my high achieving clients emasculate men is literally by fixing them, he says, I had a hard day at work. She's like, why? What happened? And he says, my colleague said this and this. And then she'd be like, oh my God, but you should have said this in return. Why didn't you fight back? Or, hey, honey, what's wrong? And he says, yeah, this Excel thing is getting stuck again. Oh, I know how to do Excel. Let me fix this for you. Right. And she comes and she takes over and she like finds the solution. Now, I know it comes from a good-hearted place. And I don't think it's about showing our men down. At least for the majority of women, we're not doing it to show our men down or to emasculate our men, but fixing a man's problem without his permission is emasculation.
So good to know that. Like I said, women do this unconsciously. So now knowing that, maybe just be able to catch yourself in those actions. This has been so valuable, Sami. There's so much to go into. So I know you have programs. You've helped how many women?
Helped 300 plus women get married and
Ah,
engaged at this point, and
yeah.
we've helped over 350 marriages, reignite the passion
Yeah.
and recover from literally the brink of divorce for some of them.
That's
Yeah.
so amazing. So how could people find out more to work with you if they desire to do so and bring, that magnetism into a relationship and really get what they desire and want out of their life and their love life?
Yes, thank you for asking, Erica. I actually have a really amazing gift for your community, and it is a training that I have prepared for 50 minutes training, video training, where I am showing women how to lean into their feminine energy. So, for women who are successful, we've got the masculine thing dialed down, right? Like
Right.
we know how to step up, get up, do the job and get things done. But when it comes to feminine energy, it can still feel like a vague concept that can feel a little harder to master and to understand. And so, inside this training, I'm going to be giving the 3 top shifts that women can make quickly, whether they're single or in a relationship, to embody their feminine energy in their love lives. And what comes along with this training is my top 10 feminine energy scripts to get men to cater to your needs. So this
Mm.
is about communication. So a lot of the times my private clients are like, "Oh my god, I love this feminine energy stuff, but how do you talk about money with a man without emasculating him? Or how do you get a man to, please you in bed? Or how do you say these things about, how do you draw boundaries? How do you address, kids? How do you get him to step up and be a leader? And what do you say while still being in your feminine energy?" So I'm giving you my top 10 feminine energy scripts inside this PDF. So both of these are part of a gift that I have prepared for your community. And
Great.
I think the link will be in your show notes.
Yes, absolutely. So you'll provide me with that. That sounds amazing. I'm sure a lot of people I'm gonna look at that. I'm curious.
Yay!
And okay, so just to close off, I always love to ask my guests if you were to leave a piece of advice that you feel anybody needs to hear right now, it doesn't have to do with relationship, doesn't have to do with love, just a piece of advice that you've learned in your journey that you would like to leave with us today.
Oh my God, it could be anything. So
Yes.
it gets interesting. Okay, so I'm going to stick to my niche. I'm going to stick to love because I truly believe we're all here for love. I believe it is the ultimate experience that we're here to have on planet Earth. And so, my one piece of advice would be, do not neglect your love life. I know so many amazing women, who are single, who say that when their career goals are met, they're going to focus on their love life. And by the time they come to us, it's late. Like I'm talking, women in their 50s, and like they're like, "Oh my God, Sami, I've missed the bus." You've not missed the bus. But if this is you, you want a family, you want love, don't neglect your love life. And even if you are a woman in a relationship or marriage, I always tell my clients, just imagine being on your deathbed and having 7 figures in your bank account, but nobody to hold your hand, nobody to, be by your side. How empty of an experience is that? And so, if you're married or you're in a relationship, again, don't neglect your love life because of your career. Like, take the time to nurture your relationship, take the time to do the work. I mean, I am a relationship expert and I still learn. My relationship challenges me in ways where I'm still triggered sometimes by some things my husband will say or do. And I'm always excited and curious to go deeper, to learn more, to bring my best self to my relationship because love matters and relationships matter the most and so much. So don't neglect them.
Perfect. Yes, I completely agree. And I think that's so true that so many people, especially in today's world, we're just, trying to create so much success. And of course, that could throw things off balance. And we don't want it to be so late where we're like, oh, I wish I would have done that. So I love that. Thank you so much, Sami. This has been such an honor. There's so much value. So everybody go check out Sami Wunder. She offers so many programs and of course you could coach with her. And I think it's so worthy. I would have hired you in a second, like without a doubt. So everybody go check her out. All right. Thank you so much, Sami. This has been so
Thanks
great.
for having me. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye-bye.